we're meeting. This workshop is about putting prayer at the heart of your parish. The parish is very important. For the time-wise, we have till 10:30. So after 45 minutes of me saying a few things, then I invite you to say a few things. And somehow, let's say, what I hope is to convey you questions, because you're the one who are going to find the answers together in your parishes with your parishioners. It's not about every answer being set in advance that you apply, but some guidelines are useful, guidelines and questions. I want to begin with the importance of the parish, because you can say to yourself, what is a parish? Why put prayer at the heart of the life of a parish? Is it prayer for monastery or sanctuaries? Why put prayer in the parish? Is it important? What is a parish, and in what ways is it important? So, well, I think many of you, I don't want to make publicity, but we all received the story of a Catholic parish rebuilt. So I'll take an excerpt from that, citing the National Conference of Catholic Bishops in the United States, which talks about the parish. The parish is where the church lives. If you want to answer the question, what is a parish? Ask yourself, what is the church? And when the answers you find to the questions, what is the church? You can apply, not always literally, but you can apply to the parish generally. Parishes are communities of faith, of action, and of hope. They are where the gospel is proclaimed and celebrated, where believers are formed and sent to renew the earth. Parishes are the home of the Christian community. They are the heart of our church. So a parish is very important. A parish is a local church. It's a church present in a territory. So what a parish is called to be is what the church is called to be. But the parish, the diocese more precisely, is called to be a particular church, a church present in certain dioceses. But every parish is where the church is called to be on a territory wise. And to be near people. Why territory? It's to be near people. So parish are not enough. We need other things, movement, associations that go across boundaries, across territories. But we need basically, at the heart, we need the church present in a territory. So parish is very important. It's the church present in a territory. How do you define parish? When you ask people what is a parish, someone might say, oh, a parish is where you can go to Mass on Sunday. A parish is about helping the poor. A parish is about having moments of fraternity and celebration. Whatever the definitions of a parish or those that can be dear to each one of us, somehow every definition is okay. Every definition is good in this, but all the definitions need to get together and to be together. So it's not one thing more than another. It's all to take together all the dimensions of the parish. And if we look at the church, because it's about the church being present in the parish, on a territory, that's what the parish is. We can talk about the church in many ways. I'll give you 3 ways, which complement each other. The church as mystery. Mystery means mystery of God present in His people. Mystery means a church built by Jesus Christ. Mystery means being rooted in Jesus Christ. Mystery means being coming from God and going to God. That's what mystery is, to be in God. And so the church is mystery. A parish is called to be a mystery. The church is communion. being together in Christ, because when we're related to Christ, He relates us to each other. So being communion in Christ, and seeing Christ in the poor, and going where Christ is as baptized people, but also where people are looking for good, where people are suffering, everywhere. Where it's communion. And the church is mission. Mission. Going out. Where God is not known, where the love of Jesus Christ is not known. It's about mission. So mystery, communion, and mission. And the idea of the church is to have all of those three together. It's not only about mystery, because Jesus Christ is God incarnate, so it's not only about mystery. It's not only about communion, because there are others in the world. Christ comes from all of humanity, not only for those who already believe, but for all of humanity. And it's not only mission, because without being rooted in Christ, we cannot do the mission. Without being a communion, we can't go into mission either, because it's together that we go into mission. And when we go to mission, it's to call people to Christ and into communion. So mystery, communion, and mission, it's basic. So it means what the church is, the parish is called to be. So a parish is called to be mystery, communion, and mission. In this, the joy of the gospel, this apostolic exhortation, Pope Francis will recoup those three expressions in his own vocabulary, which is related to Vatican II. It's not a new vocabulary as such, but he puts them together. So the sheet of paper I handed out to you, those are excerpts from the Joy of the Gospel. If you look at number 28, the parish is not an outdated institution. It's important. It's very important. It's the church present in a territory. And how do you define that church? If you look what has been highlighted, it's a community of communities. The church communion it is a sanctuary, which is a very strong expression. A sanctuary is very strong. When you think about sanctuaries, where you're going to pray and meet God. So a parish is a sanctuary. It's a mystery. It's the mystery of the church present in a territory. So it's a sanctuary, and it's a center of constant missionary outreach. So it's a missionary center. So the idea of a mystery becomes, in this language about the parish, it becomes a sanctuary. In this idea of communion, in the parish, it becomes a community of communities. And this idea of mission, it becomes a missionary center. So the parish is a sanctuary, a community of communities, and a missionary center. So the idea is that all of those aspects, they are to be put together. Not everyone can do everything, but as a parish as a whole has to be involved to be a sanctuary, a community of communities, and a missionary center, and work on all fronts. Someone could say, in our parish we're glad we have Mass on Sunday. We don't have much else, but at least we have Mass on Sunday. That's very important. That's the heart. But it's not enough. It's not enough. It has to work to become a communion and a community of communities and a missionary center. So those are tough questions. But how is your parish going to be a sanctuary, a community of communities, and a missionary center? When we see community of communities, it goes in all directions. It's like a family of families. It's how to reach out to the families and be a family of the families. It's also about welcoming communities, associations, often an association of faithful or organization, Catholic organization, of movement or institute will knock at your door. Could we have some space? Could we pray here? Could we meet here? Normally, if you're going to be a community of communities, you go out of your way to welcome them. You don't say, we don't have space. You go out of your way to welcome them. And it becomes a synergy, interaction between parish proper and other communities, associations, living their commitment or their mission through the parish and with the parish. So, and all of those three aspects are very important. If you work, you need for every year, every pastoral year, to ask yourself, what are we going to do this year for sanctuary, for community of communities, and for mission? And you might not be the perfect sanctuary. Don't put everything on being a sanctuary if you're going to stop being a community of communities or a missionary center. Don't put everything on missionary center if you're going to stop being a sanctuary. Work on three aspects. Don't do everything. Do what you can, but looking for a balance between the three aspects, and then you go. But to go ahead, not all the three are on the same level. To go ahead in the context of evangelization, there is a very important number in the Joy of the Gospel, the paragraph 12. Very important. It's not that we don't know it, but it's that we forget it easily. So with the sheet of paper I handed out to you, so number 12, highlighted words. Mission, evangelization, is first and foremost the Lord's work. First and foremost, the Lord's work. It's not about our project, it's about God's project. It's not about our plan, it's about God's plan. It's not about our mission, it's about God's mission. Mission is first and foremost the Lord's work, surpassing anything which we can see and understand. God's work goes as God has the power to reach every soul of every human being, to touch every life. We see a bit of what he's doing, but I would say we don't see 95% of what he's doing. We see a bit because we're not in heaven. In heaven we'll see everything, and it will be always more than what we can see. But on earth we see 5% of what he's doing. So, what if we don't see the other 95%? It doesn't mean it's not happening. And it's not only what we see that is important. It's also what we don't see is important. So everything that God does is important, and He's at work all the time. Jesus is the first and greatest evangelizer. So we're here about Jesus saying He is the first and greatest evangelizer. It's not only about the sanctuary dimension, it's also about the community of communities dimension, and it's also about the mission dimension. It's a center that touches every dimension of the church and of the parish. Every dimension of the parish is touched by the fact that Jesus is at the center, first and greatest evangelizer. In every activity of evangelization, the primacy always belongs to God, who has called us to cooperate with Him. So our life is a participation to the work of God. It's the participation to His work of creation and salvation and redemption. It's our participation to the construction of His kingdom, eternal kingdom of love. So it's participation, a cooperation and participation. Though the primacy always belongs to God, who has called us to cooperate with Him and who leads us on by the power of His Spirit. And the next phrase, the highlighted one, is very important, is very demanding actually. The life of the church should always reveal clearly that God takes the initiative. In our way to do things, in our way to be a sanctuary, in our way to be a community of communities, in our way to be a missionary center, it should always reveal clearly that God takes the initiative. If the first thing people see when they see us is us, well, we have to work on that. The first thing they should see when they see us is Jesus Christ, calling them, loving them, so that as we approach people, we can leave them, leaving Christ with them, you know. Because once someone believes in Christ, his life is transformed. It's Christ who transforms life. It's not us. God is in mystery. He wants us to cooperate with Him, to work with Him. He wants us to be His instruments, to such a point that really it's astonishing. It might even, anyway, it frightens me. It frightens me if maybe that God wants really to go through me. Sometimes when I'm tired, I tell Him, God, you don't need me. Do it. You have the power. You have the power. Do it. No, I want to go through you. Get up. Get up. Kneel down. Okay? Because if you don't kneel down, you will be on your own. That's not good. Kneel down, but then get up. And what I've learned in the process that in the end, he's the one that puts me up. So I kneel down, and He puts me up. So it's about, in our way of doing things, in our way of being a sanctuary, a community of communities, a missionary center. We must reveal clearly that God takes the initiative, that He has loved us first, and that He alone gives the growth. Growth is not about us. I've always been impressed by King David. King David, chosen by God, a great sinner, but at the same time having the courage to face his sins and to believe in the mercy of God. At one point, David wanted to know how many people there were in his kingdom, so he counted. I don't know if you remember that passage. If you do, anyway, I never forgot. I read it once, I never forgot. And after counting, he knew the number. He was glad he had a good number in his kingdom. And God punished him for having counted the number. Because God told him, it's not your people, it's my people. By counting, you act as it is your people, it's my people. And St. Paul will add to that, and God gives growing. God makes us grow. He gives the growth. God gives the growth. So, the parish is the church present in a territory, sanctuary, community of communities, missionary center. But at the center of everything is God doing the work of evangelization, is Jesus Christ doing His work and calling us to cooperate with Him. So, how do we make the parish a sanctuary? It will have an impact on communion and on mission. It will have an impact on our ability to put Jesus Christ at the forefront. Because in the sanctuary, it's very clear, a sanctuary. A sanctuary is about God. When you go to a sanctuary, what do you tell yourself? I'm going to pray. The only reason to go to a sanctuary is to pray. So somehow, the parish has to be available for prayer, a house of prayer, a center of prayer, a place where people within the parish can pray, a place where people not in the parish but going through can knock at the door and find a place where to pray, and can find an open door. So it's about being a sanctuary. How are you a sanctuary? I just give the questions because the answer, I will give you some answers, but they might not be the ones for your parish. Being a pastor, I've always been surprised that realizing that when I'm in the parish, I do pastoral activity, but I'm being conscious that if I would be in another parish, I would do something else. Because it's about doing works of hope and faith and love with the people that are there, with the community that is there, with the team with which you work, and with everyone. So it will be different from one parish to another. So I'll give you a few examples, but are they good for your parish? You'll be the judge. How to implement them, because sometimes an idea is good, but you implement it in your own ways. You'll be the judge, So it's about going ahead in the project of making out of a parish a sanctuary. A sanctuary, one of the key things is about having an open door. I know it's not easy. It's a challenge to have an open door. How do you get to have an open door? There are different possibilities. I've seen once a parish, I've seen that in Rio actually, in Rio de Janeiro when I went there to World Youth Day. There was a parish, open door all day long, but they have a security guard at the door. That's how they had the door open, but it's okay. So, it was quiet, ready, and it was a good way of doing things because it got it done, the job done. The door was open, and people were coming in and out. I've seen a parish where you would go in. There would be a few people, like a team at the door entrance, available for people coming in, and there would be music. Something like Gregorian chant music that invite two people. I've seen that once. So it's with a few lay people welcoming people at the door, giving plus if there were someone presenting. One I've seen it's exposing the Blessed Sacrament, the Holy Sacrament, an exposition. It can be an hour a week, it can be a day a week, it can be more than that. It's already happening in the diocese. A few parishes it's 24/7. Others will be a few hours on a certain day. And, so adoration, well, let me put it this way, adoration works. Adoration works. Normally, when you think about adoration, you might think it's for people who are very devoted, great believers, and who are ready for adoration, who want adoration. But what's been the experience for at least the last 20 years, and we can go back before that, is actually adoration evangelizes. Often it happens, it's not rare, that someone, let's say, will see a door open, going by, will get in, just to look. We'll see people praying in front of the Blessed Sacrament. We'll sit for a few minutes. We'll stay an hour. We'll see a priest. We'll go, I'm going to talk to him. And we'll end up with a sacrament of penance, of confession. It wasn't their idea at the beginning. But something is happening when they get into the church. When you enter a church, something is happening because it's present. And when you expose the Blessed Sacrament, God is present and is active. So it's very powerful. It's very humbling. It's very humbling because it's very clear that when you expose present the Blessed Sacrament, it's very clear that it's not about what you're doing. It's about what God is doing. It's very clear. In that sense, it's humbling. You know, when you have your own projects, measurements, evaluation, and we're doing something here. But here it's that no, we're not doing anything. It's God doing everything. We have something to do. We have to be there for the church to be open. We have to offer a presence. How do we do that? It's a challenge. But somehow I think we cannot go around it. It has to be done. Our churches have to be open. I remember that there's this woman who comes to the church, so she enters, so she comes to me and she talks to me, and she tells me, I don't know what I am doing here. I wasn't coming here. I was going to visit my sister. And now I'm here. So we understand what's happening. It's God. It's God moving her to meet Him. Moving her to meet me? Absolutely not. Because if the church is not open, if the Blessed Sacrament is not exposed, she's not there. She's there because we help prepare the way for Christ to meet His people. For Christ to call His people to come to Him and meet them and talk to their heart. So it's very humbling because it's God doing everything, really. But it works. And God really is at work and He's showing us and we see it, and it's very important for the adoration. Adoration is very important and it's a path of conversion. It's not only a path for those already committed in faith, it's a path of conversion for people who, whether don't believe or are far from faith, it's a path of conversion. And when you relate to that, the availability of a priest for the sacrament of reconciliation, it's like a 1-2 punch. You know, it's like, it's very powerful as a work of grace is happening. And you might say, oh, it's for people who've been, I don't know, of another time, another place, or another time, another era, and now we are in a secularized world, and we won't reach people like that. Well, it's God who is reaching people by touching their heart. It's God who is calling them by moving their heart. So when they find an open church, when they find a place where they can meet Jesus Christ in adoration, when they find a priest available for a sacrament of reconciliation, the work of grace is done, is going on. And it's very humbling, because in the end, you haven't done anything. It's God who has done everything. Many parishes try it. Let's say some parishes or ring parishes will have exposition of the Blessed Sacrament for so hours, but they'll announce presence of a priest for sacrament of confession at some time. Or maybe without even announcing it, someone will just be there. So once, a couple of times in the years, in the last few years, I would have, let's say, 40 hours of exposition of the Blessed Sacrament, one night, from Friday early in the morning to Saturday evening, all 2 days, and also in the night. And I would ask people to put their name for at least always two people for every hour, and we ended up with 80 persons giving their names, and children wanting to rise at 3 o'clock in the morning because it's exciting, and I called a few priests to make a succession of priests present with shifts of 4 hours. So 4 hours, for all of 40 hours of adoration, there were priests succeeding each other in periods of 4 hours. So always a priest that you could see. You don't see the announcement, a priest with an arrow. No, you see a priest. So he was up front, visible at the place where you could see them. If someone would go to him, we would go to a room where we could speak. And what I discovered is that it evangelizes the priest. And because we all need evangelization. It's a never-ending process. So it's a very powerful experience for the lay people who come to confessions, but also for the priest. Because it grows our faith as priests that Christ is really at work, and that He really works through the sacrament of reconciliation, and that He really wants us as His instruments of mercy through the sacrament of reconciliation. So it's really a work of evangelization of everyone. Lay people who've been away from the church for a long time, lay people who are there faithful, who never quit, priests who've been there all along for their task and their mission. We all need to deepen our faith and our hope and our love of Jesus Christ and others. So, and sometimes, you know, we all had this reaction because we talked together afterwards between the priests, and we all had the same reaction. We brought with us book for prayers, book for readings, because we told ourselves for 4 hours, you know, what's going to happen. So, but we barely had time to pray, because for each one of us, there will always be someone, calmly, with no rush, always someone. So it's really, when you put the two together, opening a door with adoration and a priest available for sacrament of reconciliation, it really puts God at the center. God at the center, because putting prayer at the center means putting God at the center. It really puts God at the center, not only as the one we pray, but as the one who works, and we collaborate to His word. So it's one of the aspects of being a sanctuary. There are others. How do you make a parish? How do you make a sanctuary out of a parish? How do you transform the parish to be a sanctuary? Of course, community of communities and mission center. There's another aspect also, because there's this, I would say, a natural alliance between parish and family. Parish is not there just by itself. It's a church in a territory, but on that territory, who are there? Families. Families are there. You might be alone, but you're always somehow part of a family. It might be a suffering family, it might be a healthy family, it might be a wounded family, but it's always about the family. And that's how we come into the world. Whatever our weaknesses, we are part of the family. Whatever the strengths and weaknesses of the family, we are part of the family. So how to be there for the family, and how to help the families discover that God can be at the center of their lives. But here we have to understand, if we want to help families to discover that God can be at the center of their life, we need, as a parish, as a church, to put God at the center of our life. You cannot, let's say, have your own programs at the center of your life and think that you can tell the families, put God at the center of your life. If you want to preach it, if you want to say it, if you want to invite to that, if you want to convey that, you have to live it. Because in the end, it's your actions that will talk more than your words. And helping the family put God at the center of their life is not easy. I don't have magic solutions here, but a few aspects. And you have your own, I'm sure, and you have your own experience. But I would think, and I would think deeply and say that we cannot escape that mission, to help families put God at the center of their life. Because we can take care of families with human resources. But in the end, it's important, it's necessary, it's absolutely necessary. But at the same time, in the end, it's never enough. Because human resources don't transform people's heart. You know, it's God who transforms people's hearts. It's God who gives strength to convert and love more and to forgive and to reconcile. It's God who gives that. So how do we help families? So if they can find a parish where God is at the center, it will help them put life at the center of their life, because they could say, okay, we'll go to the parish, we'll go to the church together as a family. So they find a place where God is at the center, and it helps them. There's also how do you help families? Here I'm out about questions. I'm more about questions than answers. How do you help families to pray together? Because sometimes in a family, it reflects the society. Sometimes one will be stronger in faith, the other will be further from faith, the others will be far from faith. So how do you how do you pray as a family? So there's no easy answer, but at the same time, there are a few experiences that can be made. What a few have tried, it's called the representation of Mary or the Holy Family, which goes around in families. Pilgrim Holy Family, or Pilgrim Mary, or Pilgrim Church, or a Pilgrim Jesus. That goes from family to family. So, for instance, in the moment of the diocese, there are parishes where they'll, let's say, they invite people to welcome a statue of Mary in their house, and they'll say, okay, it's for 1 week. So you come at the Mass, we bless you, we give you the statue, and you go in your house, and you put that in your house, and somehow it gets the family to pray, somehow. Gets the family to pray. I've tried it in my parish when I was pastor. In some ways it didn't work, in other ways it worked. I had a nice representation of the presentation of Jesus at the temple. And it was actually in the parish, in the church, we had this representation of the presentation of Jesus at the temple. So Mary and Joseph and Jesus and being at the temple to present Jesus to God. And I had this frame, and I had 20 frames. And I invited people who wanted to receive it in their house, in their home. Just call to the presbytery, and the only, let's say, way to, or rule, let's say, would be to be present at the Mass there where they would be blessed. So a few people who didn't come to church but heard about it through other ways, they phoned and they wanted it, and others would be in the church. So the day came, I blessed 20 pictures, gave them to the 20 families. But I made a mistake in the number of weeks last side. I said you keep it to 2 months, and afterwards they'll give them to 20 other families. So after 2 months, we call them, and nobody wants to give it. So okay, that's a nice problem. So we'll give another 2 months. And after 4 months, 2 months later, though it means 4 months later, nobody, not even one, wanted to give it. So, okay, I understand. So we'll do and it will be 20 other. Say, okay, you keep it, we'll do 20 others. And so we began doing so. We distributed maybe more than 200 of them. And so we would bless them, give a Bible with them, give a candle. I wrote with the team of lay people a booklet on prayer. How do you pray in the family with different people of different ages? Very simple. Some small indications for prayers between adults and in the couple and with children of different age. And so people would leave with that. So the picture was the pretext, let's say, but they would go with the Bible, the candle, and the booklet on prayer. And we received so many people commenting. And it wasn't because someone, let's say one of the mother or father is a deep believer, and they want to get their family to pray, and they're not sure how. So they discovered that just having a prayer corner, helps. Because it's a presence. It doesn't mean people pray every day, but once a week, it's okay for once a week. Okay, can we be together in front of that picture, open the Bible and read a passage? Okay, 5 minutes. And one family witnessed that at one point the parents, were not thinking about it. They had other problems. So it's the children who talk about it. So the child, 12 years old, said, "Hey, we haven't prayed for some time now. Could we pray together with the Bible in front of the picture?" So something happens when you have a religious picture or statue with a guide, maybe a small guide for prayer. Something's happened. So it's a way to reach out to families and to help them put Christ at the center of their life. Somehow it's the combination. The parish as such cannot stand on its own. It's Christ, but even there, it cannot stand on its own because it's about families. It's about families. The parish becomes families coming together, a family of families. And it works. So when you put prayer at the heart of your parish, at the center of your parish, it's easier to, it's work, it's not easy, but it's easier to invite people, families, to put life at the heart of their families. It's easier to call people who suffer from solitude, who feel isolated in life. It's easier to invite them to discover God and pray. If you're always moving around, doing a lot of things, never praying, and someone comes along to you and say, "Oh, I'm alone, and nobody loves me, or I've been rejected from my family," and how are you going to talk to them about putting Christ in their life? If you don't do it, you don't do it. If you don't do it, because there's always a price to pay for everything. And actually, there's a price to pay to put Christ at the center. There's a price to pay. There's a price to pay in humility, because it means it's not about you, it's about God. There's a price to pay in seeing how you spread your time, because it's not about all the things you can do, it's about what you do to collaborate with God, to participate in His action. So there's a price to pay. But when you pay that price, you can walking with families, you can help families pay that price too, because there's a price to pay. In time and space, there's a price to pay. And you help the families to pay that price, and if you pay it yourself, you'll be able to witness to them and help them. If you know the difficulty, because of putting Christ at the center, if you know the difficulty that it is, because it's difficult, it requires faith, and we would like to see the results, and we don't see them, and we have to walk in hope, and we don't see what's going to be tomorrow, and we would like to see tomorrow, and we like to predict what happened tomorrow, what will happen tomorrow, and we forget that there's only one thing we can be sure about tomorrow. Is Christ will be there. Anything else can happen. But as Christ is here with us today, He'll be there with us tomorrow. It's the only thing we can be sure. So if we learn to walk in faith, to walk in this giving ourselves to Christ as persons, but also as families and as parishes, as communities, then we can learn to each other. Then the parish will learn from the family, and the family will learn from the parish. The pastor will learn from meeting the couples, and the couples will learn from meeting the pastor. All of my priestly life, I've been walking with couples. And somehow, sometimes they tell me that they've learned something, but I can tell them always that I've always learned something with couples, but as to what it is to be to fulfill the mission or vocation for love in this world, whether it's in family, whether it's a parish, whether it's society, it's you need the grace of God to do it. So it's the parish as a sanctuary is a time that you give for God, so that God will be in a position to be present in all of your life. It's like the window when the light comes in. The light is not only in front of the window, it fills the room. When you give space and time to God, He doesn't come only into that space, into that time. He fills the room, He fills the territory, He fills the church, He fills the families, He fills the parish, He fills everything, because you gave Him time and space. So when the church is a sanctuary, God is at work in this church, but goes through this church to all of the community. And I remember when I began in one of the parishes I've been, when you, as a pastor, when you go somewhere, you find things that are implemented, you find a history of good things, and that you profit from, and you try to sow a few other things that others will profit from. So there was this tradition of First Friday of the month, which was well in the tradition of the parish, and then I was speaking with a few lay people, and I was surprised because I remember one couple, what they were telling me is that they felt called to adoration every week, once a week. That was their call. I feel I'm called by God to adoration 1 hour a week. So I told myself, okay, Why not offer people the possibility of adoration in front of the Blessed Sacrament once a week? So every Friday became the day of exposition of Blessed Sacrament. Every Friday, from early morning after Mass to the evening at 9 o'clock, every Friday. And then things began happening. Young people, 20 years old, having difficulties in their life, would knock at the door and ask for some guidance, opening the door to talk about Jesus Christ. But in my mind, it was very clear that it was related to the adoration. So adoration bears fruit for people who go, but also for those who don't. Because when you adore, it's not only for yourself, it's for the whole of the church and the whole of humanity. So things begin happening in the parish when you give a space to God. So God is really at work. So sanctuary, I don't think we can escape that, but at the same time, it's not only about being a sanctuary, it's about putting Christ, to put Christ at the center of being a community of communities and a missionary center. And it works, and it's a powerful way to do it, putting Christ at the center. And, we have a combination of old ways and new ways, so I'll read you what I like about this. Actually, is my breviary. If you've gone through the breviary, you often have to go from one page to the other, and with this, you go. They do the job for you. And you can have a Bible too, which is so I'm reading you a passage of the Bible, chapter 15, John. Which is it all? Everything is there. Everything is in everything. You say God is love and everything is there. But so what is I will read you in the spirit of prayer, this passage of John, as receiving this word of God, which gives us a mission. We have a mission given by God. And our first mission is to be united to God. It's our first mission. So the rest will be possible. Communion and service and mission. Gospel of John. I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch of mine that bears no fruit, he takes away, and every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes, that it may bear more fruit. You are already made clean by the word which I have spoken to you. Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me, and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. If a man does not abide in me, he is cast forth as a branch and withers, and the branches are gathered, thrown into the fire, and burned. If you abide in me and my words abide in you, ask whatever you will, and it shall be done for you. By this my Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit, and so prove to be my disciples. As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. These things I have spoken to you, that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be full. Abide in me, and I in you. Apart from me, you can do nothing. So let's put prayer at the heart of the parish and at the heart of the family. And Christ will do his work of communion and mission. Thank you. At this time, we could have commentaries or reactions, or if you have your own examples of what's happening in your parish and that you can bear witness. Please feel free and at ease to do so, because we need to learn from each other, and sometimes we learn things from another parish. Oh, that's interesting, and it can inspire us, even it's not exactly the same way because it's another parish with different people, but it still can help us to put Christ at the center. Yes?
We have Eucharistic adoration every day in our parish, but it's the odd people that don't go to work that can do that. So a lot of people, knowing how implicated we are in our parish, approached us about having a holy hour. And we started one 2 months ago, and the numbers are just increasing. Not about the numbers, but how the Blessed Sacrament is personally touching those people. And we've had people, young people, altar servers, teens, older people, and when you see them bringing their own prayers to the Blessed Sacrament, in tears, in joy, it is, you do see the presence of the Holy Spirit, you do see God working through this community. So that has begun to work very well in our parish. We're multicultural, so we have to make it work for both languages, and it works well.
What time is it?
Huh?
What time is it?
8 p.m.
8 p.m.
8 p.m. on Tuesday nights. But at first the hour is scary. 8 p.m. I want to go to sleep. But when people get there, they don't want to leave, and I've got to close up the church. Throw them out. It's phenomenal. It is the Blessed Sacrament and how he comes to people on a personal level is just.
So I don't know if everybody heard. So in the one parish, once a week at night.
We're doing it once a month.
Once a month for the moment.
Yeah.
Soon it will be once a week, I'm sure. I'm not pushing.
And you're all invited. This week is for the hours for vocations, for marriage, for priestly vocations, for consecrated life. You're all invited to our parish.
So in which evening?
Missione Maria Auxiliatrice, 8 p.m.
Which day?
Tuesday night.
Tuesday night at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
So they have this exposition of Blessed Sacraments, and things start happening.
Oh yes.
And I remember the parish where I was, let's say you would come in a Friday afternoon, and the parking lot was full. And you tell yourself, I guess there's something going on here, a party of some sort, of a big meeting. And you go in the church, and it's all people in adoration, 100 people adoration on a Friday afternoon. So it's really happening through adoration.
I just want to say I got an email for that exactly.
Okay. Good. There's an emulation from a parish to another in the sense of learning from one another. Yes, behind, yeah.
Is there, I don't do adoration, but it's intriguing to me. I wonder, do you give people an idea of what they should be praying for? Is like, this week is for marriages, or this week is for this? Do you kind of guide what people are praying for, or is it just open?
It's a good question, because it has to be talked through in every parish, because somehow you need to offer, let's say, to guide people through adoration. So it's good if there's at least once a month, I guess, an hour of animation and education and praying together, singing together, and times of silence, because the trick is to learn to be silent without being, let's say, stressed by silence. So that's one way. Is it once a week? Is it once a month? But it has to be talked through. It's good to have so people, okay, I want to go to adoration, but how do I do it? So they can go to this time of animation, and they learn. Doing it, they learn. Other times there'll be some short booklets of sheet of paper, a guide in prayer, let's say how to pray in silence, or practice, for instance, which is very, I would say, powerful, and it's Lectio Divina. So you have on a sheet of prayer, you can make the steps. You invite maybe a few Bibles available, and you have a sheet of paper will describe the steps in Lectio Divina. So people, they learn to read the Bible slowly, so it becomes. But there would be times, and actually, if the more it's exposed, the more it gives the possibility for times of silence. I've seen people, and I've seen too, people who would come to, let's say they're going through a difficult period in their life, they need silence, they need prayer, they need comfort from God. They cannot do this in their home, it's full of noise or activity, so they're looking for a quiet place. and they go at the church. So they knock at the door and it's closed. And if they go at the presbytery and it's closed too and there's no one, where do they go? Where do they go? So somehow it's a challenge to us. It's a difficult challenge, but it has to be, because there'll always be someone who comes knock at the door looking for a place of comfort. That exists every week. There'll be someone looking for that. And if people, once I stood at the, it's an example I use once in a while, it's I stood at the corner of a street with a poor man, itinérant, homeless man. And he talked to me for half an hour, about his need to pray, about his need, his spiritual need, and his need to meet God and to pray Jesus Christ. And he was asking me to help get a few doors open, in the church. Because he would happen going around, he would knock at doors and didn't find any open door. And sometimes you say, oh, it's because he wants warmth, or he wants to protect from the cold, but in this case it wasn't that, and even it's that. You don't refuse warmth, or someone is looking for one. So God is really acting. There are many stories of conversion through the Blessed Sacrament, many stories. Yeah.
I think God's inspired me for you today. We're not doing adoration in our parish, but what I was thinking is twice a month we have a food pantry for NDG, and I was thinking that the people coming to the food pantry have to enter by the side door to go down and get their food. If we had the door of the church open with some nice music playing and people in there under adoration, even praying for those families, that would create an opportunity to bring people from the community.
Yeah, it's a great idea to give a human service, basic needs, which is very important, food, so that it's covered, that they have this possibility, this opportunity to also enter into the church, and somehow God will be waiting for them, and somehow they will get to the church wanting it. Somehow they will find, oh, I'm in the church. The surprise of being in a church, surprised by God. They'll be surprised by God, and you will surprise them.
I'm going to propose that to her.
Okay.
I'll let you know.
I'm very lucky to belong to a parish with adoration every week from 6 o'clock in the morning to 1 o'clock at night. It's a wonderful
No, I'll say it again.
Perpetual adoration I remember that people were so touched. People were coming in and out all the time. Everybody was amused to have God in their life.
Excuse me, do you want to come here?
No. I had somebody, I had people to witness their experience.
Please.
I used to write it down.
No.
I'm very softly spoken. I had people write down their experiences, what happened to them when they were at the parish before the Blessed Sacrament, and it's amazing how their lives were touched. I really do encourage people, if they can, to introduce adoration in their chapels, because it converts your own heart, and also, as the Archbishop mentioned, your heart converts other people. I do encourage it. Sorry, I don't want to take all the time.
Okay, Ryan?
What I think we all were, your presentation spoke to our hearts this morning in a very deep way, and I'm particularly touched by your emphasis on open door policy. Having lived half my life outside this country, and therefore having come from places where churches were always open, it was a huge culture shock to see that many churches are not open during the day. And so this is something that would be lovely if it would be even encouraged at the diocesan level for priests to think about. Our weather and other factors probably make it a bigger challenge than in other countries, but there's absolutely nothing that really stops any church from having a door open where a person from nowhere, you don't know, needs to come in and speak to the Lord. And knocks, as you said, it's locked, knocks at the rectory and it's locked. And that's like to me, a huge disservice to the person who could not get entry. And the other thing of the priest being available is absolutely tremendous. Because usually, as you rightly pointed out, after the person has been inside the church, either before the Blessed Sacrament or prayed in the church, they want to speak. So that's a huge contribution that the church and the priest, depending on availability,
This last intervention is about working, although it's difficult and we understand the conditions we're in, but it's to work so that the doors will be open. Yes?
I agree what you said regarding Eucharistic adoration and the grace that are talking about. I think it's something in my life. As well as other devotions I find that are getting lost with time, like you mentioned the First Friday, the First Saturday, the Rosary. I need to remind everyone that how to do the Rosary. Blessed Mother promises so many graces. I often have families tell me, I have a wayward child, I have this, I have that. I say, as a mother, pray the Rosary for that child. Consecrate your child to the Blessed Mother, and she will remember them. I don't know how to do it. When I'm older than myself, and I find it that we're losing some of the old devotions. And sometimes in the parish, let's say our parish is a one country, so we have one priest. So he can't always be available for confession. Confession is very difficult in the parish because it's by itself. You see what I'm saying? So how can we, and often, let's say she said her parish, they don't have the Eucharistic adoration. We can propose that to the priest, but if the priest says I can't do it, then we don't have it. So how can we support the priest so that we can have, you know what I mean? Like he's alone, that's it. So, and I know there's a lack of priests now, so it's a vicious cycle. But that's often what happens, is that they are alone, they don't have help, and so they have to lock the door.
So let's say that personally, I wouldn't say there's a lack of priests because it's not about a lack or not of priests. It's about finding ways to expose the Blessed Sacrament, whatever they are. It can be with the help of a deacon. It can be a priest celebrates Mass in the morning, expose the Blessed Sacrament, and you organize a chain of people so that every hour there'll be 2 people, let's say. And in time, it doesn't take much time for people to answer, let's say for a few hours or the day that you choose. And some things will come along. And maybe fruits of vocations will be more vocations in the seminary. And so there's some, we cannot say, okay, we like priests, we don't do this. No, we do it. We find ways to do it, and it will happen. And what you said is very important. You mentioned the Rosary. You cannot escape that. I've spent all the month of October talking about the Rosary and praying the Rosary. To be Catholic is to pray Jesus with Mary. The Rosary is praying Jesus with Mary, so it's very important. Yeah.
But I find that what I don't hear from the pulpit.
Yeah.
Speak louder, please.
Sorry. What I find I don't hear from the pulpit is the priest, like Saint Dominic and the Curé d'Ars, who will preach the rosary, who will preach the benefit. I very rarely do I hear it in October when they say, it's the month of your rosary, let's do the rosary. But I would say 75% of the people there don't know how to do the rosary. And they don't even know the value, they don't know the grace that it comes. I think we need to hear it again, like Saint Dominic.
Absolutely. It's okay, and sometimes, people, when you're a pastor, people of a parish, people will come to you and ask you things, and if someone comes to me and says, like someone once came to me and said, I would like to pray the rosary every day in the church. I said, okay. And we found a time where others could join, and it worked. So I would like to know more about the rosary. Okay, I'm going to look for something, whether myself or some tools. So just in a dialogue, express it, and it will be there, because there's a thing that is expressed in the joy of the gospel, and I didn't talk because you cannot talk about everything, because adoration is one way. It's not the only way. It's not only the aspect of being a sanctuary. There are others. Rosary is another necessary aspect. But there's also what is called popular piety. That is, popular piety is when people pray. Let's say rosary is a tool of popular piety, because it's not about your education or health. It's about being simply human being, Christian, and praying Mary. Rosary, having a crucifix that you can look up to, and is very important. It's about popular piety. There are churches where the first thing they see in entering, at the entrance, is there's a big crucifix, and they go in front of the crucifix and they have a gesture of piety towards the crucifix, so towards Jesus Christ through the crucifix. So the crucifix is very important, very important. It's when you get out the crucifix out of the churches, and when you enter into a church where there are no more crucifixes, we lose something, because it's the greatest revelation of the love of God for us. It's Jesus Christ giving His life on the cross, and even a cross without. Even when we say Jesus Christ is resurrected, but it is the crucified who resurrected. So you cannot put away the cross because He's resurrected. It's always about looking at the cross. And in St. John, there'll be a passage where Jesus will say, "Once risen, I will call to me all the people." And John wants to be sure we understand what he means when I'm risen. It's about when it was talking about the death He was going to suffer. So when I'm risen, that is when I am on the cross. I will call to me every human being, all the people. So a crucifix is very important. There'll be times in your life when let's say you're suffering, whether it is sickness or whether it is solitude, and you cannot bring yourself to pray, but you can look at a crucifix, and the crucifix will pray in you. The same thing with the rosary. The rosary, you might be time where you're too tired to pray, but the rosary will pray in you. So when you pray the rosary, which is praying Jesus with Mary, when you learn to look at the crucifix will pray in you, and the rosary will pray in you. So this is part of popular piety. It's something that is available to anyone. If you give a theology course, it's very interesting, but it's not for everyone. But the crucifix is for everyone. The rosary is for everyone. A lighted candle is for everyone. And if we don't give to people gestures of popular piety that is available and reachable and possible for anyone, somehow people will invent liturgies of their own. They will invent their own styles of candles, and they will invent their own prayers with candles. They won't be praying to Christ, but they'll invent something, and it's happening. That's what they're doing now. And if you don't give them the rosary, they'll recite something else. If you don't give them the crucifix, they'll look at something else, at the pyramid, at the rock, I don't know, they'll look at something else. So popular piety is very important. Yes, afterward. Okay.
I just wanted to reinforce what you said about the youth being excited when they would be invited to go pray at 3 in the morning. It worked on me, and it worked on the other youth in my parish where when you give, I think there's a misconception that the youth just want to play, but if you really challenge them to sit in prayer with Christ, it's one of the things you'll see most affect them. And adoration, fasting, things that during the time of Lent, you could do a 24, 40-hour fast with them. And they love the challenge of getting disconnected from all the noise and sitting and actually being still. So I just want you to know, don't be afraid to ask the youth to pray and get involved in these things. It's not an old way that's lost on them. It's something that I think they respond almost the most to.
So she just witnessed to the fact that the youth, that they have a thirst for God, and don't be afraid to invite them to pray, but because they find peace and joy in challenge, but they answer with joy to the call to pray.
Saying that besides adoration as well, this is an experience of last weekend, which was a weekend retreat of interior healing.
Okay.
And there were young people there that were at the end of the retreat crying, so they were liberated of whatever. And the beauty of that is also, because we don't have too many of these retreats in parishes, is that the amount of people that went, and people in their cars would see all these people coming out of the church, you know, joyful and happy. I'm sure they asked themselves, well, what's going on there, you know? Because we know the churches, a lot of our churches are empty, but all of a sudden, oh, there's an amount of people coming out. That is like, and joyful. So this is another thing that we're missing, that I believe we also need. These retreats where all have wounds that we need to be healed. So as well as adoration. But like today, all these, les enseignements qu'on est en train de prendre, c'est ça qu'on a besoin. So we need that as well. And,
yeah, it's the importance of retreat, because when it's clear in your mind that the parish is a sanctuary, then you can, with prayer and seeing other things and your own reflection, can come along with many ways. And a retreat is one of the great classic way. And of course, when you say we invite people to a retreat, what do you mean? You invite people to put God into their lives. So it's a very powerful way to give the message, so that even those who won't go to the retreat, somehow it will be a message to them also, because they know, okay, there's a retreat. I cannot go this time, but next time I think I'll go. So it's very very powerful also. Yeah. I'm very glad you talk about angels, because I'm a fan of angels. And do you know what's the first action of an angel? Adoration. All angels in heaven are in adoration of God. And they're sent by God, because angel means messenger. They're sent by God into the world to announce us the greatness and the love of God, and to call us to adoration and to adore with Him. There's one fact that is not known much, but when the Our Lady appeared in Fatima to the youngsters, one 1917. The year before, there was a year of apparition of angels, 3 times. And what they would do, they would manifest themselves and they would invite the youngsters, the young ones, to pray with them. And they would, let's say, they would kneel besides them, and together they would pray God. So they will lead them in adoration. They will lead them in prayer. So an angel is very important, and we know that somehow in God's providence, angels find somehow some echo in the heart of many people, whether they believe in Christ or not. And so it's also a way to reach people, because people are looking for something out of this world, let's say. And an angel is very important. Yes?
We had an idea in our parish this last spring for during Lent, is I paired up children who were in the Sunday school, in the catechese, with parishioners. So parishioners would offer to pray every day for one of the children in the Sunday school. I gave everybody pseudonyms out of the Bible so that it was quite anonymous. And so for the month of Lent, or for the period of Lent, each parishioner would pray for one child in the Sunday school. And then I tell the kids in the Sunday school, there's somebody who's praying for you, why don't you pray for them as well? And I gave the parishioners like a prayer that they could pray if they couldn't think of a better way to pray. My goal was to have people praying for the children, but I thought it would also be very helpful for the parishioners who were praying, who maybe weren't used to praying every day.
It's a very good example of a chain of prayer, a simple gesture, invitation, touches people's hearts, and really goes through that action. Sometimes we think our prayer, we feel very powerless, maybe, and but don't forget what Saint Thérèse de Lisieux said. It was doctor of the church, and that with prayer you have the power to transform the world. Because it's always about God transforming the world, but prayers opens the door, opens the way for God. And I want to make a little publicity stunt. You know, the diocese just published an application. Whatever your mobile is, you can find that application. And it's you just Diocese of Montreal, and it brings you to the application. And on that application, you can, if you go on church, there are different menus. On churches, it will show you the church which is nearest to you, wherever you are. If it's your home, at work, the church which is nearest to you. And if you go the menu, you'll find the address, the phone number, the hours of Mass, of adoration. And there's also another item, which is called prayer intentions. You can have it in French or in English. Prayer intentions are people who write down their intentions, and you can support them by pressing a button which has your support to the prayer. And it counts the number of times people pressed. And there also an item where you can also have your own prayer written, you write it. And all those prayers are taken into a monastery, a recluse missionnaire, contemplative year-round, full day, adoration full day, 24/7 adoration with the recluse missionnaire. And they bring all those prayers, they bring them in their prayer, in our own prayer. So it's a chain of prayer. Chain of prayer is an idea that needs to be looked at more. Because it's always it's not about what we do, it's about what God do, what God does, and He does. He wants to go through us, and even if sometimes it will be through our pain, the only thing we can do is offer our pain, and He'll go through that. Actually, it's the most powerful prayer. We know that. The most powerful prayer is when you cannot do anything, and you're in pain, and you're referring to Christ on the cross. That's the most powerful prayer. And the fact of praying, he goes through that. So thank you very much for your time, for your attention, for your attention. So I think we are on time. We are on time, so it was a pleasure. So let's be united in the mystery of God, in the church as a community, and faithful to the mission God is giving us. Thank you.
On behalf of all of us here today, yes?
I'd be remiss in my duties if I didn't say this. This young lady sitting beside me, I met 20 years ago. She, her husband, and a team started an adoration chapel 24/7. It's still going. We're still in the same room.
24/7 Adoration Chapel, St. John Fisher.
St. John Fisher for sure. We started with a 24/7 adoration chapel.
That's right.
For years.
4 years. Thank you.
So thank you again for inspiring all of us today on how to make our parish an open door. It was just wonderful. I love your idea of a picture that was left in taking home to all the parishes. That I thought was just wonderful, and I don't leave here today much inspired of you because
Can I do another publicity stunt? It's on the feast of Christ, on Solemnity of Christ the King, on Saturday evening, the 27th, November 27th, in the Saturday evening at 19:30. There'll be the Mass to Christ the King, but during the Mass there'll be a blessing of Pilgrim Virgin, la Vierge Pèlerine. There'll be a blessing of the Pilgrim Virgin for those parishes who have them and have them go, this Pilgrim Virgin go from house to house. But so if you want to bring a statue and an image to bless, it will be on the Feast of Christ the King. Otherwise, at the cathedral. At the cathedral. Mary Queen of the World Cathedral. I just want to make sure the right date. November, 22nd. November 22nd, Saturday, November 22nd, 19:30 in the evening. Christ the King. Thank you.